Hello everyone, today is 5th of December. Now it's 10 o'clock in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for the day in which I'll share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. And there are quite a few very significant developments and news that I'd like to share with you for this moment. Although before I start, let me notice that quite often I have second updates and some additional extra content on my Patreon and Boosty pages. And if you are looking for more news from Russia, more commentary, and if you like my work, my project, and want to support, you're more than welcome to join our communities on Patreon and Boosty. That will be great help, of course. Links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And dear friends, I really hope some miracle will happen and our community on Patreon will reach 200 before end of this year. Initially, I was hoping that we will manage to reach 200 before end of summertime. It did not happen, and I'm afraid miracle will not happen now also. But at least I have to try to reach out to to you, so that maybe you will consider to join me on Patreon. Or on Boosty, by the way. I'm publishing same content on both platforms, although of course our community is much bigger on Patreon. Links, as I said, under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And well, that's been said, let's talk about news now. And first of all, short update on a zone of special military operation. Russian armed forces, as a result of local scale offensive operations in Vremelsky salient area, established control over their Благодатная settlement, according to latest reports. And if true, by the way, Russian Defense Ministry did not yet confirm this information, but many sources are reporting about this progress. So if true, then, well, it is becoming clear that the Russian armed forces basically are trying to encircle Velikaya Novoselovka, major town in this direction that is still under control of Kiev regime's forces, at least partially, because Russian troops already are conducting operations inside the Velikaya Novoselovka. And I guess in upcoming days, maybe even before end of this week, we will see Russian offensive towards Starozhivoye settlement and Niskuchная settlement. And once these villages will be under full Russian control, then it will be factual that Velikaya Novoselovka and Vremevka are in operational encirclement, because Russian armed forces conducting offensive operations from the northern side. Also, some may argue that Velikaya Novoselovka already is in operational encirclement. In any way, significant progress of the Russian armed forces in this area, and Russian troops are improving positions all along the front line, by the way, on all the sectors. And in no circumstances Kiev regime will be able to regain initiative anywhere ever. It is what it is. I will continue with some more news, because military channels, as you know, are providing great volume of detailed information about progress of special military operation anyways, several times a day. And there are, I guess, vast majority of our community is familiar with the military channels. So I will continue with some other news, because after all, my project is about news in general from Russia. And well, our team paid attention to article in Reuters, according to which Trump has free plans at this point for Ukraine. So let's go through this news here. Donald Trump's advisors have presented him with free plans for resolving the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, Reuters has reported, citing several sources close to the US president-elect. Despite certain differences, all of their proposals include Kiev ceding territories to Moscow and giving up on its aspirations to join NATO. The agency said in an article on Wednesday the former Trump's national security official involved in the ongoing government transition in the US has told Reuters that one of the plans came from the president-elect's incoming Russia-Ukraine envoy, retired Army Lieutenant General Kat Kellogg. The other two were authored by Vice President-elect J.D. Vance and Trump's former acting intelligence chief Richard Grenell, respectively. according to officials, Trump's advisors reportedly intend to try to pressure the two countries into negotiations by using carrots and sticks strategy. Reuters said it would see Washington halting military aid to Kiev if Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky refuses to negotiate, and more armed deliveries for Kiev regime or to Kiev regime if Russian President Vladimir Putin expresses an unwillingness to engage in diplomacy. The outlet explains, as of last week, Trump had yet to convene a central working group to flesh out a unified peace plan for advisors. Four advisors told the agency on conditions of anonymity. And yet again, dear friends, we are hearing from the West about the strategy of sticks and carrots, that Washington will try to talk to Moscow with a position of strength, as if Washington is in position to talk to Russia with position of strength. And this is non-starter, by the way. This is a clearly non-starter. I really struggle to understand what the hell is wrong with these people there in Trump's camp. Are they that stupid, that uneducated, or that out of touch with reality, or what is wrong with them, man? Do they know what is really happening on the ground, what is going on? Because if they had good enough knowledge, they would understand that Russia is winning. Russia basically already won this conflict because there is nothing Western ruling class and NATO can do to turn the tide, no matter how much weapons they're gonna send to Kiev regime. Absolutely don't matter at this point. They cannot turn the tide. They can prolong this conflict for another several months, maybe even several years. But eventually, they will have no option but to face the reality and not acknowledge that they lost this proxy war that they provoked against Russia. So therefore, if Trump is really serious about de-escalating, about improving relationships with Russia, as he was stating during the election campaign, then he should ask for help, not to these warmongers, by the way, that he picked for his administration, maybe with the exception of J.D. Vance. He should ask some real experts, if there is any left in US, experts on Russia. And they are, by the way. Of course, they are experts, and we know at least several of them, right? That really can provide Trump with their objective information, and maybe even with proposals. How should Washington, what kind of plan should Washington propose that will be workable, that will work, right? I'm not talking about what Kiev regime thinks, because it don't really matters, right? We all understand that Zelensky is nothing, and his administration is nothing. US can take them out and replace just any day. So therefore, they are not subjects of this process, right? They are just the puppets that play their role for time being. That's it. But when it comes to relationships between major capitals, let's say Washington and Moscow, I think there are some people in the US itself that really can help Trump with to come up with really workable proposals. And for example, if Trump's administration will say, you know what, let's start from the beginning, and admit that Western made a fatal mistake while breaking their promises to Russia about expansion of the NATO, and that was a big mistake. Now, we are where we are. We cannot go back in time and do some stuff differently, but that was a mistake, right? So therefore, topic of expansion of NATO eastwards is closed forever. So no new members from the Eastern Europe will ever join NATO. That should be stated clearly, right? That's one step. Secondly, it will be good if Trump's administration will admit that it was also a grave mistake to ignore proposals of the first Russian president, Yeltsin, and then second Russian president, Putin, that Russia would join NATO. Many people in the West probably have no idea that there was a times, by the way, when Moscow was really seeking close strategical partnership with the West, right? And Moscow even proposed to join NATO to make sure that sides do not see each other as enemies, right? So that true de-escalation would happen. But unfortunately, Washington refused to take this proposal from Moscow seriously. And you know why? Of course, you know why. Because almost entire economy of US stands on military-industrial complex, right? And the US leadership didn't want it to make necessary changes after Cold War has ended. And to maintain this military-industrial complex, they needed enemy. So they were never honest with Russia when they were saying that, you know what, now we are friends and now we're going to have a good relationships. They were never honest about that. They always had in mind to demonize Russia at some point, to start demonizing Russia so that they will have a reasoning to maintain this immense military-industrial complex, right? That makes very influential clans in the West very rich, right? So that's why Russia was not invited into NATO, even though Moscow was open for the idea, right? So it will be good if Trump's administration will admit that that was a mistake on the part of the West. And then when it comes to current situation, of course, it will be good if Trump and his team will admit that it was a fatal mistake on part of West to get involved in Ukrainians' internal affairs and to conduct basically that coup d'etat, to orchestrate that coup d'etat in 2014, when Nazis and fascists and all sorts of other criminals were put in power after coup d'etat, right? There has to be this admission that West made a fatal mistake on that, right? After which, by the way, civil war started almost immediately in this former Soviet republic, right? And if in Kharkov region, people were unable to defend themselves from these Nazis, even though they tried. If people were unable to defend themselves in Chernigov region, Sumy region, Dnipropetrovsk region, Zaporozhye region, Odessa region, then people were able to organize fast enough in Donbass, right? And they give a good fight to Nazis and fascists, right? That were put in power by the West in Kiev after that coup d'etat. So one should realize that this conflict was initiated in 2014, straight after that coup d'etat, right? So it will be good if Trump will admit that that was also big mistake and crime actually on part of West. And then when it comes to current situation, it will be good if Trump will propose something that Moscow will be able to take seriously, right? For example, I mean, it is not even discussion here in Russia that entire southern eastern parts of this former Soviet Union republic have to be liberated. From Kharkov to Odessa, by the way, entire that territory have to be liberated from Kiev regime. There is no question about that here in Russia, right? So it will be better if directly or indirectly, but Trump will contact Russian side and said, you know what, Kharkov region, you are in charge of all the territories that you already control, right? And you already declare as a part of Russia. It's Donbass, Crimea, obviously, Kherson and Zaporozhye regions. So this is not even discussion, right? But now we are talking about Kharkov region. I know it is very vital for you, for your people, to liberate Kharkov region. I know there is a Russian speakers there. They want to be part of Russia. I know it's a similar situation in the Dnipropetrovsk, right? In Nikolaev and Odessa regions. So therefore, let's talk about what we can do about it. And I mean, if you will agree, let's for example, stop. I mean, Kiev regime's forces will withdraw from LPR, DPR, Kherson and Zaporozhye region. This is not a question. They will withdraw from there. But then, if we are ceasing hostilities right now, then we will conduct under UN monitoring referendums in Kharkov region, in Dnipropetrovsk region, Nikolaev region, Odessa regions, potentially Chernigov and Sumy regions, maybe some others. We can discuss about it, right? And let people decide, do they want join Russian Federation or they want to be part of this Bolshevik creation, so-called Ukraine. Will it work for you? I mean, that's proposal that Trump may come up with. He can talk about this with Putin, and I think Putin might take this idea as a workable one, even though it's only a matter of time. And of course, Russian armed forces will liberate Kharkov region, Dnipropetrovsk region, Nikolaev and Odessa regions, Chernigov and Sumy regions. It's only a matter of time. We know this, right? But to avoid unnecessary casualties, unnecessary destruction, Russian leadership may take this idea as a workable one, right? And that can be a good starter for ending the hostilities. Then, by the way, on top of that, if I was in position of Trump, I will say, you know what? We all know that western parts of Ukraine were taken from Poland, from Czechoslovakia at the time, and Romania by Stalin, right? And given to Ukraine. Part of Czechoslovakia that was given to Ukraine, Transcarpathia, used to be part of Hungary, historically speaking, and therefore there are some aspirations in these countries to reclaim these territories, right? Historical land. So probably you wouldn't be against it, right? If those countries will take control over the Western Ukraine, their historical land, and that part eventually will become part of NATO because these countries are NATO member states, although I can give you guarantees and NATO can give you guarantees that there will be no NATO military infrastructure based on these areas. No offensive NATO infrastructure. Offensive, defensive, nothing, right? That might work. That might work also. That can be interesting for Russia, right? Because as I said many times before, you will struggle to find in Russia that many people that really cares about Western Ukraine, right? And then, if I was an advisor to Trump or in his position, I will propose to Putin, and you know what? Rest of the Ukraine, let's keep this rest of the Ukraine as a landlocked state, a neutral one. We will have referendums in Kharkov region, right? In Dnipropetrovsk region, in let's say Sumy, Chernigov region, some other regions, also of course Nikolaev and Odessa regions, and we will see if people said, you know what, we want to join Russia. Okay, they are joining Russia. But in regions where people might say, you know what, we want to be part of Ukraine, they will be part of Ukraine. So we will resolve this issue without any fight, right? And whatever territories will be left, Kiev and let's say surrounding areas, let's keep this as a landlocked quasi-state. Landlocked quasi-state, neutral one, without any aspirations to join Russia. And you know what? They might even have a pro-Russian government. I would not insist that they have to be one way or another controlled by the West, right? We will leave that territory. We will basically take Western Ukraine and that's it. Rest of it, just, you will take care of that part, right? Are you interested? That's a working idea, by the way. That's the working idea that, my English is not perfect, right? We all understand that, but I'm trying to explain as best I can directions that can be interesting for Russian side, right? For Russian leadership. And if Trump and his team will come up with such ideas, it might work. It might work, really. And we might see true de-escalation and a long-lasting peace, right? But is there anybody in Trump's camp that can tell him about any of this? Or potential other ideas that also can be interesting for Moscow? I don't know, man, because all the time, whenever there is some reports in Western outlets about plans that Trump has in regards to this conflict, there is always this accent on this sticks and carrots and how they're going to talk to Moscow with position of strength and that kind of stuff. And this is a non-starter. You are not in a position to talk to us from a position of strength. You are guilty, for God's sake. You are guilty on many levels for everything that happened between West and Russia and in regards to Ukraine. Because you did it, right? You provoked it. And you think we can see you in ever as a someone that has any moral high ground or any basis to talk to us from position of strength. No, man. You can flood Kiev regime with as much weapons as you like. It would not turn the tide, right? Maximum from now on, maximum you can do is to transform this confrontation into a nuclear one, right? And in that case, that's going to be the end of everything. That's going to be the end of all of humanity. This civilization that we are part of. But if you are not willing to risk that much, then and that's it. You have to de-escalate because it's you that started this, right? So this is my take, dear friends. This is my take on this situation, and I guess many people would agree with me here in Russia and worldwide. Majority would probably agree with me. But in any case, as I already mentioned, by the way, if Trump will propose something workable, some realistic plan, okay, good. But if not, Russia will, of course, will liberate all the historical Russian territories anyway. And in no circumstances Western ruling class will be able to turn the tide. This is just too clear, by the way. This is just too clear and should be clear for Trump and his people also. And I really hope somehow they will come up with better plans. And meanwhile, outgoing head of U.S. State Department is imposing more pressure on Kiev regime to start mobilizing youngsters, teenagers, basically 18-year-old kids, 19-year-old kids, to sacrifice to be sacrificed for geopolitical agenda of this globalist scam that Blinken is a part of. And I'm afraid even potentially even before end of this year, Zelensky's regime may actually do it one way or another, but they might start forcefully mobilizing teenagers, 18, 19-year-old kids also, to send them to get killed for so that Blinken will get a little more richer, and whoever they're pulling the strings in the West, those globalists basically. Yesterday I shared on my Telegram and on my page on X, short video where Blinken is once again talking about this topic, that Kiev have to make this decision, and they will, most likely Kiev will do it. Meanwhile, RT is reporting that US House Speaker rules out more Ukraine aid. So the US House of Representatives will not consider President Joe Biden's request to include 24 billion US dollars in additional aid to Ukraine in a government funding bill. Speaker Mike Johnson has said in the absence of a formal budget, the US government has been funded through continuing resolutions periodically approved by Congress. The White House has requested the 24 billion as a part of its latest proposed legislation, which their House would need to adopt before Christmas holidays. I am not planning to do that, Johnson said on Wednesday at a press conference on Capitol Hill. It is not the place of Joe Biden to make that decision now, he said, and he has a point. I mean, Joe Biden is outgoing president, right? And such a fundamental decisions should be made by new president, right? Although we know how this personality, Mike Jones, is acting. He was making some strong statements before when there was conversation about 50 billion US dollars that eventually was allocated for Kiev regime. And you know what I was saying, isn't it? That US military industrial complex will use all their influence if necessary, but they will eventually force House to, their assets in a House and the Senate to vote in favor of that 50 billion to be, allocated. That's exactly what happened. And similar stuff may happen now also. Mike Johnson didn't really prove himself as someone that has any principles, really. He can flip-flop every other day. So therefore, hard to tell what will happen. Today, he's saying that there is no way we're going to allocate 24 billion for Kiev regime. Don't even think about that. Tomorrow, he may come up and say, you know what? Situation is changing. I mean, aliens are attacking. Andromeda Galaxy is in danger, so therefore we have to allocate not just the 24 billion, but also another 124. I mean, he can do it. I mean, he's not a person that deserves any respect, really. He already proved that, right? So it is what it is. This time, only difference right now is that, yes, Trump's team may say, you know what, hold it. And in that case, yes, that might work. But if Trump's team will say it. And yet again, by the way, Trump's team is also, it seems to me, are under immense influence of neocons, military industrial complex. I mean, majority of Trump's picks are the war hawks, right? And then therefore, meanwhile, by the way, this report from RIA Novosti that head of Russian General Staff Valery Gerasimov had a phone call with his U.S. colleague on 27th of November, just about a week ago. And let's go through some details. So the chief of the General Staff of the Russian and the United States, Valery Gerasimov and Charles Brown had a telephone conversation, said the Brown's representative, Captain J.D. Dorsey, quoted by ABC TV. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the U.S. Armed Forces, Charles Brown, spoke by phone with the Chief of the Russian General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, on November 27 after a request from the Russian Defense Ministry, he said. So this call was initiated by Russian side. And I wonder what was topic of conversation. Of course, we're not going to receive any details on that. Information is classified, most likely. But we can have some informed guess on that. Probably they exchange opinions about potential Oreshnik launches to make sure that US is understands that when Russia is launching non-nuclear configuration of the weapon, and when, for example, our situation is different, because Oreshnik obviously can be nuclear armed and armed also with conventional re-entry vehicles, right? Conventional warheads. And I guess Gerasimov probably said to his colleague about certain targets, U.S. assets that may be targeted if U.S. and UK or France will launch yet another long-range strike deep into Russian territory with the Western weapons, and one way or another. But since 27, there was no long-range strikes until now. By the way, there was no long-range strikes deep into Russian territory with the ATACMS missiles or Storm Shadow missiles or Scalp EG missiles. At least we did not see any reports on that, right? Of course, some sources are reporting nowadays that US, Washington, London, Paris are preparing large-scale long-range strike deep into Russian territory with all these missiles, and there are potentially some more. Maybe that's true, hard to tell, but in any ways, last time these Western long-range weapons were used to strike deep into Russia was the 25th of November, if I remember correctly. This conversation happened on 27th of November, and since that period, we didn't receive any report that long-range strikes had happened. Maybe message that Gerasimov delivered to his US colleague was effective enough. I hope so. And hopefully there will be no more this extreme level of escalation, because things may go in uncontrolled ways very fast, right? If situation continues in that deteriorating way, when NATO countries are targeting Russian territory, killing Russian citizens, and then Russia is retaliating and they're destroying, annihilating assets of these countries worldwide. In that case, of course, situation may go in extremely dangerous way, very rapidly, even up to full-scale war, which will be yet again end of everything. So hopefully Gerasimov delivered the message effectively enough, and we will see no more these long-range strikes by the NATO member states on Russia, and Russia will don't have to retaliate and take out some US or British or French military assets in Europe or elsewhere. So interesting news. Also, by the way, RT is reporting that British Army would last about 6 months in a war, according to British military official. So in case of an actual conflict, the UK would run out of soldiers in 6 months to a year. The British Ministry of Defence official in charge of personnel, Alistair Cairns, has stated. Cairns is the Undersecretary of the State for Veterans and the People in the country's Defence Ministry. He raised concerns about the size of British Army during an event at the Royal United Service Institute think tank on Wednesday, and then quote, in a war of scale, not a limited intervention, but one similar to Ukraine, our army, for example, on the current casualty rates would be expanded as a part of a broader multinational coalition in 6 months to a year, Cairns said, and I think he is just too optimistic, really. British Army is about like 70,000-80,000 troops, and in military conflict, in high intensity military conflict, as we see in this former Soviet Republic, so-called Ukraine. In such a high intensity fight, 70,000-80,000 is just 2-3 months. That's it. If they are on the receiving side, let's say, of force that are comparable to Russia, or if they are on the receiving end of Russian strikes, let's say that way, entire British army will last like 2-3 months at best. One should keep in mind, dear friends, that when NATO prepared this entire army of the Kiev regime for 2023 summer offensive or counteroffensive that took place in South Donetsk sector and Zaporozhye sectors, reports are that, and those brigades, by the way, those dozens of brigades of Kiev regime were trained by NATO, armed by NATO, right? And during that absolutely disastrous counteroffensive, according to reports that we see, Kiev regime lost from 100 to 160,000 military personnel killed and wounded. And that is twice more than the British army, right? The entire British army. So therefore, I think these statements of Alistair Cairns is truly exaggeration. British army would not last 6 months and definitely not a year in such a high intensity conflict. Maybe 1, 2 months, 3 months, that's gonna be it. And if anybody thinks that British armed forces are more capable than Ukrainian or Kiev regime's armed forces, dear friends, in that case, I have Mountain Everest to sell to that person, because you cannot compare these two, by the way. British armed forces have not seen a real battle for decades and decades, right? While Kiev regime's armed forces are in battle on daily basis, so they are much more battle hardened and battle capable, obviously. But still, they are unable to, hold on to their positions when their Russian forces are on offensive. But still, by the way, one should admit that Kiev regime's forces really give a good fight to Russia, and this is a tragedy of our people, because we are one people, for God's sake, right? They are part of Russian world, we are part of Russian world. This is civil war that is happening. Civil war that was provoked by Western ruling class, prepared and provoked, and this fueled until now by the West. anyways, I guess leadership of British armed forces will ask for more money to buy more weapons and to increase armed forces, and I would not be surprised at all if in near future UK will resume conscription to boost ranks of the armed forces, to increase number of military personnel significantly. And many other countries in NATO, by the way, probably will also reintroduce conscription. Talks already are taking place about it. And if you remember, I was one of the first commentators who was saying for quite a while now that at one point these NATO member states will start pushing this narrative that they need to reintroduce conscription. And this is happening. Commerçant newspaper is reporting that according to Wall Street Journal's article, Trump might change his initial decision to appoint as a head of Pentagon Fox News host Pete Hegseth and give this position to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. I don't know if this information is correct or not. Who knows? Maybe the Wall Street Journal is just making this story up. But if true, by the way, well, that would be quite interesting. I guess by many, Ron DeSantis would not be seen as hawkish as this Fox News presenter who served as a military himself, Peter Hexet. But we will find out. We will find out. I don't understand why would the Florida governor will agree on that, because as far as I know, he has some presidential ambitions, right? He's quite popular in Florida and in US in general among Republicans, even though he would not stand a chance against Trump, obviously. Trump is way more popular, but still, by the way, after 4 years, Ron DeSantis may try again. So therefore, I think position of governor is a much better place to be for a starter in the presidential race than being head of Pentagon. So therefore, even if Trump will propose such a position, I don't know if Governor DeSantis will agree on that, but who knows? Who knows? I'm not an expert in U.S. internal, all that politics and stuff. So you tell me, dear friends, what is your take on that? RIA Novosti is reporting that Russian foreign minister arrived in Malta to participate in a meeting of foreign ministers of Organization on Security and Cooperation in Europe. And well, it is quite unfortunate, by the way, that Russian side agreed to participate in this meeting because, first of all, because this organization, OSCE, is definitely a tool in hands of Western ruling class, and secondly, hardly Moscow can have a decent talk to anybody there, right? And after all, by the way, Malta recalled the visa for official representative of Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova. That happened yesterday, which is crazy. She had a visa, and this is next news that I want to share with you. She had a visa, but Malta, for whatever reason, I guess under orders from the, some decision makers in the West, recall that visa of Maria Zakharova, which is crazy. She is the official representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry and a Russian diplomat, right? And if it was up to me, I mean, once this news broke out, I will say, you know what? No one is going in Malta. But yet again, I mean, no one is asking me also, isn't it? So Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has arrived in Malta to take part in an annual meeting of the foreign ministers of OSCE countries. RIA Novosti reports this visit was Lavrov's first trip to an EU country since the start of the special military operation in Ukraine in February 2022. Last year, Lavrov visited North Macedonia, which at that time was the OSCE chairman in office, and a year earlier, Warsaw, which held the same post, refused their ministers' participation in their annual OSCE meeting. Prior to this, the ministers' last visit to EU was a trip to Geneva on January 21st, 2022, where he held talks with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. In any case, by the way, my take is that Lavrov should not go into Malta because I mean, with whom he's gonna talk there? I mean, first of all, and why? This organization, why are you giving additional legitimacy to this criminal organization that this OSCE really is? Just a tool in hands of Washington, Western ruling class that never is objective and never platform to resolve any issues when it comes to European continent. And that's exactly the reason why this organization was created in the first place, to resolve issues peacefully in European continent, right? Its name is Organization on Cooperation and security or security and cooperation in Europe, right? And also Lavrov should not be there because visa of Maria Zakharova was cancelled by Malta's leadership, which is also something out of this world, man. This is just too crazy to even comment seriously, right? But anyways, I mean, he's there. Let's see what additional news will come out from that meeting. And as I already said, by the way, Malta cancelled visa for Maria Zakharova. What the hell, man? What the hell? And dear friends, before I continue, let me notice that this small media project of mine is completely subscriber funded. And if you like my work, let me open this page on X. So without VPN, it would not open. So yes, dear friends, this small media project of mine is completely subscriber funded. And if you like my work, if you like my channels, if you want to see further development of this project, and if you have opportunity really to support, you can do it with a donation through PayPal or Boosty platforms, or by subscribing to my Patreon page or on Boosty. All the links are on this video description box and in the pinned comment, including others of my crypto wallets. So it's all up to you, dear friends. I really hope our community will reach 200 mark on Patreon, because at that point, hopefully, this project will no longer be in a place when survivability is everyday stuff. I mean, we managed to survive last month. Now we are fighting for survival this month, and it's a constant struggle, by the way, and quite nerve-breaking, really. It is difficult, by the way, to run this smaller media project. It's difficult, but it's something that I'm happy to be part of, and hopefully I'm useful for our community, and I'm providing with informative and useful content. That being said, dear friends, let's go through some more news. How long is this update? It's already 47 minutes. So at least headlines, dear friends. I'll give you at least headlines to make sure that update is not too long. Syrian OSCE is reporting that since the beginning of terrorist offensive in northern Syria, Syrian armed forces, also militias that are in support of Syrian government, and also Russian forces, neutralize more than 1,600 terrorists. I think real number may be even higher than that if you take into account scale of Russian airstrikes, right? Novosti is reporting that Zelensky, by the way, yesterday went after Georgia and start threatening Georgia with the sanctions. Crazy. I mean, he probably had a poor quality powder or something. And he went after Georgia. Unbelievable, man. He wants. He's not happy that Georgian leadership actually did not sacrifice Georgian society and Georgia as a republic for a geopolitical agenda of the West, while Zelensky did sacrifice Ukrainian society and Ukraine. And he's not happy that Georgia is. Georgian leadership has some principles. They want to serve their people, and he's criticizing Georgia now and threatening with sanctions for dealing with the Western assets that are trying to destabilize Georgia and overthrow government, and then, yet again sacrifice Georgia as a sort of second front against Russia and the orders of the Western ruling classes. Vzglyad newspaper is also reporting that this Western-controlled opposition in Georgia, non-governmental organizations and Western-controlled and financed media is calling for all-out strike in Georgia. They are calling people not to obey orders. To basically, they are calling for all-out destabilization of their country. Of course, vast majority of citizens of Georgia will pay no attention to these crazies and the traitors. Really, that's what they are. They are operating under orders of the foreign powers. That is a definition of the treason, right? And they all should be prosecuted. This leadership of this so-called opposition and the NGOs and the so-called media. And maybe process of that is underway, because yesterday police start operating a little differently. They conducted search operations in offices of these radical opposition extremist groups. Several people were arrested because of their calls for further escalation of their disturbances in the country. And among people that were arrested are several leaders of Lelo party, several leaders of, these all are, by the way, parties, so-called politicians that are affiliated with Saakashvili one way or another. Former president of Georgia, also Western asset, CIA asset, that provoked in 2008 military conflict with Russia and sacrificed Georgia then. So you know for sure what will happen if these extremist or criminal groups will get in power once again. They sacrificed Georgia once in 2008 under orders of the West, under orders of the Washington, and they will do it again. They already proved that they are capable of sacrificing country and society, right? So a number of extremist leaders were arrested yesterday, although this is definitely not enough. Among arrested extremist leaders are Aleko Elisashvili, also Nika Guaramia, number of others. I don't think these names are telling you anything, so therefore I wouldn't go through that details. But these are criminals, by the way. These are criminals paid and directed by the foreign powers, and therefore they should be prosecuted as a criminals, as a traitors. I don't know how far current leadership of Georgia and security services are willing to go in this regard, but it is good to see that at least they are taking some actions now, not just dispersing this aggressive extremist crowd that is trying to destabilize country in Tbilisi and elsewhere, but they are already conducting some arrests. Right way to go, but more needs to be done for sure. More needs to be done. RT is and hopefully in that case, maybe current leadership of Georgia will manage to secure country and secure citizens of Georgia from this so-called color revolution, and then from destruction, total destruction that after potential color revolution Georgia will experience, because as I said, Western ruling class wants to sacrifice Georgia. RT is reporting that French parliament votes no confidence in Macron's PM. So French Prime Minister Michel Barnier has lost a vote of non-confidence vote in the parliament, as lawmakers on both their left and the right united to oust him. Non-confidence motion requires 288 votes in the National Assembly. Wednesday evening's motion received 331 votes, much more than necessary, which with the left-wing New Popular Front and the right-wing National Rally uniting in opposition to their minority cabinet imposed by President Emmanuel Macron. And by the way, rumors are that Macron don't really have any other options now but to step down and call early presidential elections. maybe that is going to happen, although I don't know, man. It seems like Macron is a psycho, right? He loves to be in power. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe he will resign, or maybe he will call for early parliamentary elections. If, maybe he can dissolve parliament and then call for new parliamentary elections. Who knows, man? France is experiencing some serious political crisis. That's for sure. RIA Novosti, in any case, soon France to have a new government. RIA Novosti is reporting that, I have to translate this, by the way. Pakistan is in talks with Russia to build a pipeline, Pakistan stream. And this is quite interesting. Good idea, why not? Absolutely. So Islamabad and Moscow are at the initial stage of discussing the Pakistan stream gas pipeline. Pakistani Energy Minister Sardar Legari told RIA Novosti, we are only at the initial stage of discussion. Not much is possible to report on this yet. Experts are working. Let's see what can come out of this. When they finish their work, we will examine all legal and financial obligations, he said. So, even though at this point it's just too early to call that this Pakistani stream will be realized, this idea of a gas pipeline, but it's a possibility. It can be done, by the way, for sure. Why not? And good to know that sides at least paying attention to potential of cooperation in many fields, including energy field. RIA Novosti is also reporting that Russians Soyuz 2-1B space rocket was launched successfully with military payload, with the satellites of for Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation. Launch of this rocket happened from Plisetsk Cosmodrome in Arkhangelsk region of the Russian Federation. So I guess soon Russian Defense Ministry will have additional means in space. Once this satellite or satellites, all that information is classified, obviously, will go fully operational. And finally, dear friends, I'll give you this news that price of Bitcoin reached yet another historical height, over 100,000. It exceeded 100,000. This morning on some of the articles I saw 101,000 number, which might be the case. Big gains, by the way. Even this article is mentioning that experts are expecting that Bitcoin will not just reach 101,000, but even higher than that, and will stay on these high levels. Maybe that's the possibility. Yesterday, Russian president, during his appearance on Russia calling a VTB conference, economical conference, said that while commenting on Trump's threats towards big member states, that if they will move away from dollar, then US will impose some 100% tariffs and stuff. Putin was commenting on that. I shared information about it yesterday, right? And he also noted during that speech that there are new time now, new developments are happening, and there is no one center in this world that can influence everything, right, and direct everything. And for example, he mentioned Bitcoin. I mean, what are you gonna do with the Bitcoin, right? For example, this is objective reality. Bitcoin exists, cryptocurrencies are existing, and more and more people are moving towards this crypto technology, this blockchain technology, right? Because they feel it is much more safer than some other means. For example, who knows? Maybe statements of Russian president also influenced positively on hike on Bitcoin's price. It is certainly a possibility, isn't it? And this is it for now, dear friends. I guess after Bitcoin, some other cryptocurrencies will also gain in price. And this is it for now. This is it for now. Hopefully you will find this update informative and interesting. It is a longer update, 1 hour, but I hope video was interesting. And if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything. As you know, dear friends, this is the only way that we can try at least to influence algorithm, and I do need your help to overcome algorithms obstacles, because my channel is in shadow ban. So yes, if you can, comments and likes will be helpful. Share information about my channels with your friends on internet or on or in real life. And finally, if you like my work, if you want to support, you can do it. All the links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a wonderful day and take care.